Hey everybody, one of the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at the Deadzone 2-player starter set from Mantic. This is the second edition starter set, the Fall of Omega 7. The first one had the, I think it's GCP versus the Vermeer. This one's got the Plague against the Asterians. It's a complete battle box with 2 copies, or a copy of the second edition Deadzone's rulebook and force list. 2 new armies, so you've got the Asterians here. They're sort of like drone combat-y guys, led by this big bad mamma jamma right here, support piece. And the Plague with Captain Plague, some corrupted sort of like human, and a whole bunch of like the sort of zombie dogs, zombies, and the fightier ones too. And a set of terrain, and a paper gaming mat, dice, and command dice on top of that. So, great value in the box, and I hadn't done a review of the new second edition rulebook yet. I did play first edition Deadzone, so I figured I would give this a look. What's great about this is it's all of the game stuff compiled into 2 copies, a force list with all of the current miniature ranges rules for the forces themselves, and a core rulebook with 16 missions, and the core rules for the game, and a nice light campaign system on top of it. So if you haven't played Deadzone before, I do have a Let's Play for the previous edition. I'll probably do a newer one sometime soon if I can find some players to do it with me. It is a measurement-free, it uses a like cubes in space sort of simulation system for movement. Miniature skirmish game between 2 forces, typically a leader, some troopers, a couple support pieces, and maybe some of the special name characters, set in Mantic's sort of like futuristic universe. The core box you can see here contained the, I think it's GCP, it's the Humanity basically. I can't remember the name of the faction name again. The Galactic Sphere, yeah, GCP. And the Vermeer, who are like mutant rat men as the 2 opposing forces. And the game uses D8s and a command dice system with some opposed testing. So it's a fairly simple combat system. If you have a stat, you typically have an associated value for success. So like a range combat stat, you'd roll your D8s, all the 5s are successes. It uses an exploding dice system. So for every 8 you roll, you'd roll an additional die on your test. If you have a success number required, then like, so for instance, a range combat test, at least 1 success to pass. If you have a opposed test, it's X, and both players would roll off on their compared stats, and the person with the higher score would then have that differential be their success. There's also a command dice system, and the command dice system is usually used to acquire new activations and stuff for the turn. So like that's an additional die on a test. That's an extra hit on attack. That's a free fight action. But there could also be special powers activated, chain activating additional models, bonus movement. Basically, they give you like random buffs each turn. And there are additional ways to acquire more dice. Typically, you're going to roll 3, but you could have tacticians and stuff that would give you extra ones. All right, core stat line. Your speed, so 1 to 2, that's how many cubes you would move on the table. It's a 3-inch cube too, so you could play off the mats as long as you know that basically the table's gridded in 3-inch cubes. It's pretty easy to eyeball or measure where everyone's going to be. The center of base needs to be in the cube, and every cube can contain 4 friendly models, but you can have 8 models total in it if there's 4 enemy and 4 friendly, size-wise. So size is contributing to the cube, so for instance, size 1. Range combat skill, fight skill, your saving throw, your armor, your hit points, size, and then whatever base size you're on. And then you have your additional equipment and weapon stats. So like a 4-ser could have a wrist blade, which is range close combat, so in the same cube as you, and has the AP1 rule, it cancels armor. And then, for instance, their cost is 14 points, and how many victory points they give up if they die. That's basically the whole stat line. So it's real easy to show off. You can have special equipment and stuff on top of it, but it's a nice at the glance sort of data slate style stat line for actually like keeping reference to the game. Like I said, you had your weapon stats. We already saw them here. So like what the range is. So range should be 3 cubes away for a pistol, for instance. And then like your core keywords and stuff associated with it. Like I said, a dice test is how many dice you're gonna roll. So typically 3. You could have additional ones depending on your gun. So like the pistol there is range combat 3. So he has a shoot of 5+. There's 3 hits with 2 additional dice. So a hit and a miss. So that'd be 4 hits total on the test. It requires at least 1 success. And then if you are attempting a test, you can also get rerolls on certain dice. And if you have a blank stat, you can't make that test. So basic concepts, like I said, cubes and stacks. You can see here it uses a stack system as well, so the cubes go up as well as around. And you're typically going to occupy a single cube at a time. If you sprint, like use a long action to do stuff, you could move that second movement profile. Line of sight's typically using a silhouette profile, but when you're doing your first few games, it recommends just use any part of the model, any part of the model. And then rounds and turns, setting up the playing area. So you put the table together, figure out what, who's going to have the first turn, like based on the mission. Play around. So you roll your command dice, see what your bonuses are for the turn, basically. So that'd be like, I think it's a free move or a free extra cube movement. A special skill someone has, and an extra hit. And then you would take turns activating models back and forth. If you're out-activated, so if you have additional models to your opponent, or less models than your opponent, then you could pass until you're back to tied. And once you're out of models, you pass forever. Yeah, shoot, so that's an extra shoot action, so not an additional hit. So it's advance is when you activate, you can make a free advance action. That's a free move, that's a free shoot, that's a free fight, that's activate an additional model, and then dice symbol is add an extra dice to any range, fight, or survive test. You can take up to 2 short actions or a long action, so it uses like an action economy system for playing the game. Short skills are things like advancing, so moving your speed. Standing up, if you're knocked down, you have to stand up first. You can be pinned to and get knocked down by shooting. Shoot, short skill. Special action, short skill. Sprint for a long skill, or assault for a long skill. And that's it. I think you can't, a model may only perform each type of action once in a turn, so no shoot. But free dice, I think, can give you extra ones. Yeah, your free dice don't count towards that, so you could get an extra shoot action with like a command die. How your scenery affects movement, so like you can't move through walls, obviously. And the scenery you'll see that comes in the box set is designed to fit that 3" by 3" cube and kind of be stackable. So it does look a little video gamey when you play the game, but I kind of find that endearing. I kind of like that, actually. And it does mean that the game is easy to visualize when you're playing on the table. All of your skills described. The assault roll when you make fight tests. And if you get attacked, you make a 3 dice survive test opposing it. Neither choice counts as an action for that round. Usually when you assault, you're making a charge skill. It's a long skill to go into combat. You can see pictures here of the different factions and stuff too. Damage and death, shooting, close combat, or even just a misstep can all have bad effects to the model's health. Model's ability to survive is based on its hit points. Once you take enough hit points to get knocked down, then you go onto the ground. Armor plating reduces the amount of damage suffered by the AR side of the model. So like, for instance, if we take this guy back at the beginning here, and we shot at him, so we'll take that same survive test. So let's say the GCP character is getting shot with his own pistol. So you roll 3 dice in a shoot test. He's skill 5, so that's 1 hit. He gets at least 1 success, no explodes there. He'd make a survive roll on a 4+, and for each one he passes, he negates a point of damage. And then you make a survive test for every point of damage, sorry, hit you take, sorry, rather. And then it's reduced by the armor at the end of it all. So like, if you got a big roll, there's 2 hits, you'd make 2 survive tests, you'd fail 1, and then the armor would block a single point of damage when it's all said and done. So again, nice, simple, like opposed dice skirmish system. The command dice add sort of a neat kind of like random aspect to the game. And the sort of like, I guess the overall sort of like additional rules, you've got things for like pinning. When you get like shot down, you can be pinned, you get slammed into walls during like pushes and stuff like that. You can fall off cubes by being pushed. Things can scatter. But you don't really need these for your first games. And then staying on partial cubes and stuff as well, basically, it dictates like where you can actually stand if you move into it. So you can have overhangs and stuff too, and it still gets covered. All your keywords for special rules and stuff like that. You can do things like medic people. You have an ink sack where you could ink out. You could like throw ink into the world. You have psych powers and stuff too. You can rapid fire, which means shoot more than once, usually during a turn, or have it spread around. Be a walker, because there are rules for like mechs and stuff like that too. And then items, the gaming table does get scattered with items. They're basically little searchable like containers. There are 3D objects for them, but this is another neat aspect. And again, kind of contributes to that idea of it feeling almost like a Team Fortressy sort of thing during the course of the game, is there's stuff scattered on the board that you can find. So like extra ammo, to make a shoot action, you get +1 dice. Adrenaline shots, where your speed can go up. Finding AP ammo to gain the AP dice. Combat blades, so you get the CC Frenzy rule once per game, or like Medipacks, where you can recover hit points and stuff too, but not for vehicles. Smoke grenades are cool. They create a cloud that blocks one of the cubes, basically, for the course of the turn. So these are another added sort of thing, kind of like the command dice. They give you sort of a random fun thing, but it does contribute to a sort of feeling like a bit of a video game, which is, I think, a cool like aspect to it because it fits the models and the way they look. It has almost like an Overwatchy sort of feel to it. And then you got your 16 different scenarios. So you D8 to see which one it's going to be, and then D8 down the table to see which of the 16 you're going to play. Place your items and stuff. Again, there can be models and turrets and things in the table as well. You play typically 100, 150, 200 points, and as you go higher than that for every 50 points, you get additional VPs required to win. So it is a race 2 game, which I kind of like, a bit like MCP. You're racing to a victory point total, and the first one to get their wins overall. Like I saw earlier, as you kill models that are worth victory points, then the objectives of the mission will be worth them too. You get your deployments. All right, so this is the game map that comes in here, but you get like a deployment cubes you can get onto. And then things that can give you secret missions as well, so that you can get additional victory points from it. But overall, you're going to have like bonus mission stuff. So like discover intel. Immediately gain 2 VPs and discard the intel token. There'll be additional intel tokens on the table to try and find. Use 12 item tokens in this game rather than the usual 8. Ensure the intel is one of the tokens selected. So try to search all the items. You'll get the bonus fun bucks too, but the intel is worth additional victory points. Divide and conquer. Deep striking in, pandemonium. You'll see the deployments change and the victory conditions change on top for all of these. It's a lot of replayability because 16 missions is a lot for a core rulebook, which is nice. And then the back half of it's all background. So background for their universe, the Galactic Sphere, the Plague, the Enforcers, and the GCP sort of like Marines. And then some campaign rules, and this is the nice section where you have like a core roster you draw your forces from. They can like live and die basically after the game with like survival rules and stuff like that. And then overall, as you play like a fixed number of campaign games, you get campaign points, and the people with the most overall will win. So you choose a faction, fill up a roster sheet, work out your initial battle group, and then play some games. There are printable roster sheets on the website and stuff too. You get about 500 points. And then you're drawing from that pool of 100 points usually, or 150 points for each campaign game overall. And then you get a post-game sequence, like I said, rolling a D8. On a 1, they die. On a 2, they could be like shaken by the experience. On an 8, they're totally fine. 4 to 7, they're unavailable for the next game. They miss the game as they sleep off basically their injuries and stuff like that. And then you can get experience points where you can learn skills. If you're like a trooper, you get like basic skills. Leaders and specialists get bigger ones. And then you can get additional like stat upgrades and stuff too. But they can become worth more victory points as they get stats. And then calculate the credits. So how much money did you get at the end of it all? And you can recruit new guys when you're done and roll for random events. So cool, sort of like fun mucky stuff. So it's a nice streamlined campaign system, but again, it's more about giving you a reason to play from a single pool of models, paint up a collection, and then play linked narrative games. And I'm glad it's included in here. So again, nice that the core rulebook is separate because you're not having to flip through. And again, because these are perfect bound, it'll make the rulebook survive a little bit longer. And then the force lists, every single model so far for Deadzone should have stats in here. And it goes through the actual building of your strike team. So choose a leader, any number of troop models with the troop classification. For every 1 troop, you can have a specialist. And for every 3 troops, you can have a support model, which is like the bigger things like walkers and stuff. Your equipment is limited by your points and the size game you're playing, so less equipment in smaller games. A 100-point game will have less equipment options available to you than like a 200-point game. And you can have 1 living legend, and only if you're required. And so there's a background section for each of the factions, like the Asterians that come in the box, and then like their actual profile. So leaders, they could have an Overseer, a Cypher Prime, or a Marionette Prime, a Black Talon Prime, or their special characters, Matsuden Toshirori, or Kalishi Deathstrike. And then all your troops, Marionettes, Cyphers, Cypher Wardens, Kalishis, and then your support drones, which are support type guy. So these 4 are your troop options, and the rest of these can be added as support or specialists. So the weapons drones, Matsudens, which are also specialists and stuff too. And then lots of living legends. Again, these characters aren't living legends. Oh, I just realized that. Like the character models at the beginning there, like Kalishi Deathstrike and Matsuden Toshirori, they're just character models. They don't count as living legends, not that big. Living legends are the big guys who are worth like 32 points each. Snipers and stuff like that. So you can see here all the different character models. So there's all the primes and overseers. That's the big guys. These are the newer miniatures. And your big support robot, the Spectra. And then an identifier. I like this a lot, actually. They give you an identifier for all of the weapon types in the game, so you don't have to try and guess what everything is. You can actually see what the equipment types are. Yeah, you identifier. So the Enforcers, kind of the Space Marine equivalents in the game. And there's Pathfinders and Enforcers, and also Peacekeepers, which are like their Terminator-sized guys. Bit shorter of a list. And there's a nice model range, like your support Striders, your bikes, Pathfinder characters, which are like the Scout equivalents, Peacekeepers, which are the Terminator equivalents. I have a whole force of these guys painted up, actually, that I really like. And then your unit identifier as well. Forge Fathers, because you gotta have Space Dwarves. And their miniature is actually quite nice. I like their Iron Ancestor too, the big robot. The GCP, which is like the Imperial Guard equivalent. The Monocycle is probably my favorite thing, and then they get a version of the Strider, like a lighter version. Majors and Marine Sergeants. Commander Roko with a sniper rifle is a very like, they have a very, what's the feel? They have a very Starship Troopers-y feel to them. Marauders, which are the Orc equivalents. And you can see they have some cool stuff too, like a Grot in a giant suit, and the Stunt Bot. The Mason Labs, it's a little umbrella-y. I'm not going to say it's not. It's a little evil corporation that might have been, let's say, testing the plague. So they're not full zombie yet. They can have some sort of commandos. But Mason security guard with a rifle looks a whole lot like a certain guy from the Alpha team of stars, who might be named Wesker. And the Nameless are like Cthulhu-y sort of aliens. I really like these models, actually. I painted quite a few of them too for the last version of the game. The Plague, which is the zombies. Let's say that corporation might be responsible for these guys a little bit, like Dr. Gale. The Rebs, which are human and aliens who banded together to try and fight the corporations and stuff. Again, some cool models. Lots of different aliens in here too. And then the Vermine, which is the Rat Men, which have some quite cool miniatures. And they have a mono wheel, which is pretty cool. A Tangle, which is literally a Rat King all tied together, which I think is crazy. It's kind of like they're like, it's a palanquin almost. And they get heavies and small guys. And the models are quite nice for the Vermine too. And that's it. You see, my Strider is actually quite large. So there it is, all in this box set. You're gonna get all the force lists for the models and the rulebook. If you're looking for a nice streamlined skirmish game with a cool model line, then Deadzone might be for you. It definitely has a lot of replayability and feels like, how can I put it? It's a game where the setup and teardown is quite quick, and it has a nice light skirmish campaign system. So it's a really good Saturday night game if you want to play 2 or 3 games a night with like some beer, sitting around the kitchen table. It is exactly that kind of scale game, and the models are nice and affordable, quite nicely sculpted, and the terrain itself packs up and goes away, you know, under the bed or into the board game cabinet. So this is one I might actually play with Cash. I think he might like the theme of this one, and the core mechanics of like managing your command dice and stuff like that too. So big thanks for watching. We'll see you for more Deadzone 2nd Edition in the future. Till then, I'm Ash. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that video. There are tons of other games already recorded for you to watch. Click over to my channel page if you haven't already, and have a look through the dozens of playlists full of videos. I guarantee you'll discover a game you haven't seen played before. I put out new videos 7 days a week, and every day is themed to a different genre as I continue to explore the wider world of gaming. Of course, none of that's possible without you, the viewer, so click a like and subscribe if you'd like to stay on top of what's happening here daily. My 2 kids and I are massively grateful to be able to have the flexibility of this job so I can always maximize my time with them. If you want to support me continuing to put out this content, it's only possible because of my amazing backers on Patreon who support the studio, equipment, and model cost, as well as being how I make the bulk of my living. You can also help out by buying a t-shirt through Spreadshirt, a measuring gauge or widget from Death Ray Designs, or buying one of my games and supplements like Last Days, Gamma Wolves, and Blaster. As a way of showing my appreciation, patrons get early access to new games and supplements that I write throughout the course of the year. Huge thanks for watching, it really does help out, and happy gaming.